Hey everyone, it's Mojaxx back in the DJcity UK lab. Today we have my review of one of the new range of studio subwoofers from KRK. This is the S10.4. Let's get to it. Around 18 months ago, I reviewed the 4th generation of KRK's long-established Rocket series of monitors, and I was seriously impressed. With onboard DSP controls, Kevlar drivers, and a new enclosure design, the G4s were a huge improvement over the earlier models, which had, it's fair to say, a mixed reputation. Interestingly, they've since released the Classic series of monitors, which are much closer in design to the previous Rockets, but with a much flatter sound by default. The company have also released a new series of subwoofers to complement their main monitor line, the S series. There are 3 models, the 8-inch S8.4 with a street price of $350 in the US, the 10-inch S10.4 which I've been testing at $450, and the monstrous 62.5-pound 12-inch S12.4 which comes in at around $800. I'm not going to talk too much about the potential benefits or downsides of adding a sub to your monitoring system in this review. I covered that in some length in my review of the Adam Audio T10S sub a while ago, so that's worth watching if you're considering getting a subwoofer and haven't seen it already. I'm grateful that KRK offer very detailed setup instructions along with downloadable test tones to enable users to get their sub positioned and leveled correctly. I'd like to perhaps see a dedicated section in their Audio Tools mobile app for subwoofer setup. Seems like a shame to not make use of that, but what they offer outside of the app is still very good. Taking a look at the specs, there are a couple of things which stand out. Firstly, it's interesting that the 8 and 10-inch subs have glass aramid composite woofers compared to the Kevlar on the 12-inch sub and the new G4 Rockets, but that doesn't seem to impact the performance in a negative way though. The second big headline is the peak SPL or sound pressure level of 117.2 dB. That is loud, like very loud, and that's reflected in their real life volume too. Even when not pushing it that hard, the S10.4 literally shakes the doors here in the lab. If you have neighbours who are easily annoyed, or maybe even just neighbours at all, this might not be a great choice. It's clear that the large cabinet and massive bass port are doing their job of allowing the woofer to shift a serious amount of air. Active subs always feature a built-in crossover, which helps to reduce the low-end demand on your main monitors and to ensure a smooth balance between the two elements. I was interested to find that the one on the S10.4 has a maximum high-frequency cutoff of 90 Hz, which isn't especially high compared to equivalent subs from other brands, which can go as high as 120 Hz or even higher. What does that mean? Well, to get the best out of it, you'll want to pair the S10.4 with main monitors, which can get comfortably down to 90 Hz without breaking a sweat, usually meaning larger sizes, and those users with very small monitors might be better off going for the S8.4 instead, which has a maximum crossover point of 100 Hz. This all makes logical sense, of course, but is worth bearing in mind. Adding a sub to your system correctly is always about balance. In terms of build, the MDF construction is incredibly solid. The S10.4 feels like a very nicely made piece of hardware, and there were no signs of any rattling or other problems after extended use. It comes with a thin EVA isolation pad to decouple it from the floor slightly, although depending on your floor surface, you may need to add some more isolation to that. The connections and setup options on the rear of the S10.4 are comprehensive. Unbalanced RCA inputs and outputs, as well as balanced ones with both 1/4-inch jacks and XLRs. There's a single jack socket for a foot switch to bypass the sub and the crossover, which is definitely recommended if you can only use the sub at certain times of day. Below the volume knob is the crossover frequency adjustment and a raft of switches. The input sensitivity helps you work with a combination of balanced and unbalanced signals together. There's a polarity switch which you may well need for your setup. The standby function can be turned on or off, and there's a ground lift in case of any ground loop issues. The power supply is on a regular IEC connection. In my testing, I did wonder how much of the extreme loudness I was experiencing was down to the front-firing woofer. I've only used a down-firing studio sub in the past, and with that, the relationship between the sub and the floor itself seems more important than with the KRK. Of course, that means conversely, the distance between the subwoofer and your walls and furniture might be more of a concern. It shouldn't really be a problem though, as long as you take that time to set it up right. There is one significant potential issue with a front-firing sub, and that is your feet. Having set up the S10.4 correctly in my home setup, the woofer was directly in front of where my feet are, and I can pretty much guarantee that if it's sat there long enough, one day that woofer will be getting kicked. What's weird is that one of the photos of the S10.4 on KRK's website shows the sub with a metal grille fitted, but that is an optional extra. It doesn't come in the box. If I was going to buy this sub, I would definitely need to factor that in, but at least it's not an expensive edition though, at around $30. So there you go, my take on the S10.4 subwoofer from KRK. This product in itself is very good, right? It's nicely priced, construction is on point, you have loads of setup options, it goes low, it goes very loud, and it does it in a nicely accurate way. It's not too sluggish, it doesn't feel like it's kind of causing problems when you've got it added on to a decent set of studio monitors in the right position, in the right room. It works really nicely. But that brings me to what I said, the same thing in my Adam Audio subwoofer review, same thing applies here. You've got to be very careful when you add a subwoofer to your studio monitors, because if the room is not right, if the space is wrong, if the positioning, you can't get it in the right place, if you've not got the right acoustic treatments like bass traps and so on, if your other studio monitors aren't a good match for it, you could find yourself actually making your existing system worse rather than better by adding a subwoofer. It's not any kind of magic bullet. You know, there's no like automatic, everyone needs a sub. And I don't want to be that, party pooper saying, no, you can't have any more bass, because it just might not be right. So you have to take time and consider what your setup is, what you're going to need from your setup. If you decide that this is going to be a good match for your system and for your room and everything else, then yeah, I fully recommend it. It's a great sub. But just take that time, think, and make sure that you're not going to be causing yourself more problems by adding a sub than you will be removing issues in your system. Because it might well be that, maybe bigger main monitors are a better solution, all that kind of stuff. So just bear that in mind before you rush out and buy a sub. Take some time, consider it, but if you decide that you need a 10-inch sub for your system that's got a ton of kick and a ton of low end, then yeah, you won't be disappointed with the S10.4. Thanks for watching today. Make sure you're subscribed and you hit that bell icon down below to get notified anytime there's a new video from myself or the rest of the DJ City team. I'll see you soon.